Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to discuss the very first drum lesson that I give to any of my beginner drummers. This will get you started playing your very first beat on a drum set. We can start with a pad and just using your foot on the floor. Any left-handed drummers, just flip everything I say to your left side and it'll work the same way. So now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to think in the aspect of quarter notes. So quarter notes would sound like that. Right hand will play all of those quarter notes as you're playing a beat. Generally, your bass drum plays beats 1 and 3. Your left hand will play beats 2 and 4. So if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and repeat, your bass drum on 1 and 3. So the first thing that you want to get used to is having your right hand and your right foot hit together. 2, 3, 4, just like that. Next thing you want to do is get used to both your hands hitting together. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you want to break that up to 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. So now if you want to think about it in an easier aspect, you can just say bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare. And that gives you the 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a great place to start. So now after you perfect that, the next thing that you want to go to is start playing eighth notes with your right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's your eighth notes. To do this exercise and not have to worry about counting, what I do is I break it up to bass, drum, snare, drum, bass, drum, snare, drum. Those two syllables of bass and snare and adding the drum afterwards gives you that even rhythmic phrase of eighth notes. So now you just get used to doing that. You can do it just like this. And then you break it up. Bass, drum, snare, drum, 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 bass, drum, snare, drum. Once you get that going pretty good on the pad, we'll now take it over to the drum set and we'll see how it sounds there.
Okay, so now we're here at the drum set. So let's take the exact same thing that we did on the pad and put it into context on the drum set. So to start off with, you have your right hand and your right foot. Now, both your hands together. Now we're going to split those up. We're just going to play quarter notes, bass, snare, bass, snare. With the bass drum, or on the hi-hat, we're going to play quarter notes. Bass drum, we're going to play 1 and 3. Every time we say bass. Snare drum, every time we say snare. Bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare. So that's the perfect place to start off, just to get a very basic beat that you can take in at various tempos to put into any song. So let's bring that up to eighth notes. So that, if you're not counting the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we'll take that into bass drum, snare drum. Be sure to say that very rhythmically and very evenly spaced. Bass, drum, snare, drum. Bass, drum, snare, drum. Now, just like we did before, add your bass drum, add your snare drum. Bass, drum, snare, drum. Bass, drum, snare, drum. Bass, drum, snare, drum, bass, drum, snare, drum. Now remember, volume and speed aren't what we're after right now. Right now we're just getting your coordination together. Get your three limbs working together and separately at the same time. Speed and volume and all of the other flash and flare will come later. As you practice, all of this stuff will get easier. So take that. And just remember, bass, drum, snare, drum. Bass, drum, snare, drum. Take it, practice it daily, and we'll see you on the next one.